Almost bought that myself.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Welcome to
Yeah.
the Rebel Mike podcast. We are here today with James Wogan. I'm going to give more of an intro to him in just a minute. And Lance Dewbre of Clarity Coaching Center. You guys know Lance from past podcasts. But James, welcome.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
I'm happy to have you. So I have to give you guys full disclosure. I came across James on LinkedIn. And his posts are incredible. He works to inspire men, but the thing that really caught me was his honesty. And Lance and I started talking about doing a podcast called The Stories We Tell Ourselves, because we all have these stories we tell ourselves. And it was like while we were having this conversation, James was on LinkedIn going, I tell myself these things, and this is how I combat it. So I was like, oh my gosh, James, would you come on and talk with our audience? And there's so much here. You just wait till you hear him. James runs coaching for businessmen and Christian men, right? James, would you like to say anything about that?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm a licensed therapist, but I'm actually moving into more specifically working with Christian men, usually who are dads, husbands. Um, they're just really driven. They want to live lives that honor God, that honor their spouse. Um, and yet they carry it alone a lot, and they have a hard time sometimes sharing like their struggles or just trying to keep it all together because of the pressure and the weight of their responsibilities. So um, I try to step in and help them feel like they're not alone in that mess, and to encourage them and to help them find solutions, whether it's mentally or practically, to help them thrive.
I love that. And James's name is on the corner of his thing. You can find him on LinkedIn or you can contact us at the Rebel Mike podcast and I will put you in touch if you would like to get connected to James for some coaching or Lance. That's always an option as well. So feel free to message anytime. So I'm going to go ahead and mention another thing that James and I have talked about and I have so much respect for is that his wife and him do life together. And he likes to challenge her as well as she challenges him, right, James?
Oh, absolutely.
And so watching their relationship on LinkedIn is also fun because was it last weekend? You she got home and she's kind of like, what are we gonna do? And you're like, let's go to a party. You kind of
Yeah,
sprung it on her, right?
yeah, absolutely.
So that's another thing that's great about James is he doesn't just coach men on this stuff, he models it and he lives it as an example and shares that pretty openly on LinkedIn. And I wanted to give his wife props because she's not here for the podcast, but she's a big part of his life. So we appreciate her. And then I want to just jump into it. So we did an exploratory call between James and myself. And James, you said one of the most profound things I think I've ever heard. Like I held my breath and just kind of had to remind myself to breathe. He said people look at handicapped people with doe eyes or no eyes. And I want you to talk to our viewers about that. And then we're going to talk about that a little bit deeper because I think I shared with you I had a conversation with somebody and they saw it differently than what we had discussed. So I
Sure.
want to kind of talk about some of the viewpoints of, and you can share how people treat you that and how it makes you feel, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Go ahead.
And I want to just start out by saying that my experience is, not universal to everybody, right? So I can't speak for everybody, but I will speak for myself and just from what I've observed for a lot of other people who are physically disabled in public spaces, because I do observe and I want to watch to see if it's just me or if this is a larger issue. But when I talk about doe eyes, it's a lot of times people will assume special needs. So imagine if you saw a really adorable, 5-year-old at the coffee shop or public, and you just want to come up and say how cute they are or how special they are. Um, and a lot of times it may not be that explicit, but it can be by the tone of voice. So sweet talk, baby talk, talking as if, my comprehension is slower. Um, I've had people come up to me and just say, your life has to be so hard. I'm so proud of you just for getting out of the house. So there's a lot of assumptions that can be made, and I try to assume positive intent for everybody. I don't assume that they're trying to be patronizing or rude. I think it's out of a desire to be kind and want to bless me and my day. And I don't think they realize how it comes across. So that's what I say when I mean doe eyes. And then no eyes, I think it comes from I don't want to make this person feel different or called out. And I'm worried that if I look at them or if I approach them, um, it might be offensive, or I think a lot of times it comes from just a place of either ignorance or naivety of not knowing how to approach a person with a disability. And to be honest with you, even I've been guilty of that. Sometimes you might see somebody with a severe physical disability and not be aware of, can I shake their hand? Can they comprehend me if I talk to them? And so it's very easy for a person in their mind just to rationalize all that really fast and then make a decision. So sometimes they choose just to ignore the situation or ignore making eye contact because they just don't know the best way to approach it. And so they don't approach it at all.
That's I want the viewer to know I appreciate you leading in with you're not trying to speak for everyone because none of us can speak for everyone, right?
Sure.
But also I don't want other people to think we're speaking for them, but we are opening a conversation to say, hey, this affects people. And there's real people
Yeah,
on the other
absolutely.
side of our actions who comprehend our behavior in other ways. So I talked to someone about our conversation and they shared with me that the reason they have a hard time approaching handicapped people, they were like, I'm no eyes. And the reason I'm no eyes is because I imagine myself in their shoes and I don't know how I would be. So
Interesting.
do you think that that is kind of like they imagine if they were living your life because of their ability, right?
Mhm.
They can't imagine not having ability.
Sure.
So it scares them. Like
Yeah.
how you live scares them. Would you like to
Mhm.
speak to that a little bit?
Sure. Absolutely. Um, so I will say that I could understand that perspective. Um, to me, I would encourage that person to not be afraid. Um, because despite my disability to not have certain abilities does not mean my life is horrible. In fact, it's quite the opposite. I have faith in a God who loves me. Um, that defines my entire self worth apart from any of my circumstances. Um, and I'm blessed beyond measure. I have a loving wife. I have an amazing family. I have great friends. I'm educated. I have a job. I have a roof over my head. I have so much to be thankful for. And I have so much more than most people in this world, despite that disability. And so, yeah, I would encourage that person that even if they had the life that I had, that it doesn't mean it's a bad life. It's just a different life. And that person that, is feeling that way, I'm sure they have struggles that are just as hard that I would look at and be like, man, I wish I didn't have that, or I wouldn't want that.
Ooh, that is such a powerful point. So you're saying when people imagine your life and say, wow, I don't know how that would be for me, you're saying you can look at their lives and find something that you don't want in your life. You're like, wow, I'm thankful that that's not me.
Yeah, absolutely. A good example of that is I am a couples therapist and I work with couples all the time. And I will constantly come back to my wife and be like, babe, if you think we have it bad, you should hear what these guys are going through. And obviously, I don't share anything that violates confidentiality, but just the things that I hear, it just puts it in perspective of it could be so much worse.
It could be. And Lance deals with that a lot. And he also protects his clients, but there's times he's just like, ooh, that was a rough one. And
Sure, yeah.
even from our podcast that we've recorded and released already, there's been times he was like, what just happened? So I think that's super relatable. Lance, do you have anything you want to say just yet? I don't want to leave you out. Jump in when
No, I'm just enjoying the conversation, honestly. I was thinking, I'll tell you one thing I thought of was this. I was looking at when he mentioned about tonality and the importance of that. I pulled up my practitioner book and I just found it. To create rapport, it's 7% words, 38% tonality, 55% physiology. And so, it's really interesting when you use that tonality of like of that, I don't want baby talk or whatever that was, like, yeah, tonality's, almost half. And we think to get so stuck on the words it is, but it's how we come across.
No, that makes total sense. Absolutely.
and so we also, James, talked about people patting us on the head.
Oh gosh, yeah.
Oh
We've
my
had a
God.
similar experience with this. When I was terminal from December of 2017 to May of 2018. And the nurses and the doctors would like pat me on the head when I would tell them I wasn't going to die. Like, it
Yeah.
was so weird. Because I'm like, I'm not your puppet. Why are you
Right,
touching
yeah.
me? And James goes, oh my God, people have done that to me. Can we just talk about it's okay. Would you rather, James, somebody be like, look, I don't know what to do here, but I do want to connect here because you're another human. I connect with other humans. Because, like, for instance, if I'm in a grocery store and somebody makes eye contact, hey, how's your day? How are you? It
Yeah.
depends on my mood and like how receptive they seem, but I might say, how are you? I might just say hi.
Yeah.
But other people, when they see a difference, they might try to overcompensate. So, like,
Absolutely.
what would you prefer people do, act, say, like, help the people that really just cannot figure this out. Let's just give them help.
Yeah, absolutely. So for me, my thing for everybody is just if you're a person that goes out of your way to talk to people, just in general, feel free to come and say what's up. But if you're not and you feel like just by seeing me, and it really just depends on a person's motivation. Um, but in this regard, I feel like a lot of people, like you said, will overcompensate. And they will feel compelled to say something because maybe it feels like the right thing to do, or maybe it's their good deed for the day. Um, but you'll notice they don't go do that with other people, right? So it's just me. And so that's where I say, while that feels probably to them like a good thing, it's sort of another way to say, hey, you're different.
Oh man, it's good. So good.
So you're saying if you normally ignore people, just ignore me too.
Absolutely. Feel free.
And so I will say there are days I will ignore everybody. I have tunnel vision. I'm not looking at anybody. You can have the cutest puppy in the world and I'm not going to say hi. I've
Yeah,
also yelled out my window at people that their puppy is adorable. And one happened to be a homeless person recently. And I was just like, your puppy's so cute. And I'm like, who does that? Nobody does that. But I do. So I love that you're like, look, if you normally just don't, just leave me alone too. Um, the patting on the head, please, everybody, please, God, do not pat an adult person on the head. I don't,
yes.
unless they ask you to. If they're like, please, like maybe I have, what are those bugs called? They carry Lyme disease. I think I have a tick on my head. Could you pat my head and like check me, monkey pull it off and eat it? I don't know, but like, do not pat me on the head. It makes me want to fight you.
Seriously, yeah.
Like, it's so bad. Who does that? So I do have questions.
Sure.
Okay, and adding on to people, I asked you in the email, and I want to make sure I bring this up, even though I feel like you might have already answered it. When people meet you with doe eyes versus no eyes, what are they actually responding to in themselves? So you mentioned that
Mm.
they are trying to do their good deed for the day, which is, you know, whatever. I don't even know what to think of that. That was new to me. But what do you think also they're responding to in themselves? Is there more to that?
It's a really great question. Um, and this is something that I have recently been wrestling with and trying to have a better attitude toward. So originally, well, let me put it this way. So I want to live a life that's inspiring and encouraging. Um, and as we've been talking about how people approach me randomly and sometimes in a way that is patronizing, and they'll say, "Gosh, you're such an inspiration." And that offended me a lot because they don't know me. Like I could be a horrible person. And they're just assuming that because I'm in a wheelchair, I'm in public, and maybe I have a smile on my face. Right. So that was always a bit offensive, a bit annoying. I'd say probably annoying more than offensive. But I've been wrestling with that because if for somebody who is, and again, I don't know what's on a person's heart or what they're going through in their life, maybe they're in a place that's very dark or depressing. And who am I to say that if the light that shines from me just by being out in public, if that truly does encourage them or inspire them, then I'm trying to have a better attitude about that. So I don't necessarily know what it says about that person because everybody is so different. I would say largely that I would assume that it just comes from a place of I don't really know what to do here. And so I'm just gonna do what feels best in the moment and say hi. But it's one of those situations where maybe you have this, desire to go up and say hi, but get to that place and then, oh shoot, what do I say? How do I respond? And so they end up just patting you on the head because they don't know what to do. So, to answer your question, I would say maybe it's just they're trying to do their best and they don't really know how to fully express that.
I think that's so fair. So we also talked about ignorance a little bit, right? Like
Yeah,
how people approach you comes from a place where they don't know what to do, which is
sure.
fair, right? And um I wanted to ask you again, and I kind of asked it in a different way, but it's down here. What does respect actually look like to you in real life interaction? So you mentioned something you like from other men when you meet them in person, and I want
Sure.
you to just share those little tidbits.
Yeah, absolutely. So, sort of back to what I was saying before, men or really women too. I would just like to be approached like you would approach anybody else. Um, there are people that will walk up to me and when they meet me, they want to give me a high five. What other adult are you asking for a high five? Most men will shake each other's hands, right? Or do a fist bump, right? That's the type of stuff that I appreciate. And I know a lot of times because my body looks different and I have um, smaller hands and features that people are kind of concerned, hey, if I shake his hand, will it hurt him or whatever? I want people to ask, say, hey, is it cool if I shake your hand? Does that work? Yeah, absolutely. Shake my hand. That's it. So things like that where I don't want people afraid to ask what's possible. I'd much rather them ask than assume and then assume incorrectly.
Mm.
My dad used to say about assumptions, right?
Mhm.
If you have assumptions, you make an ass out of you and me
Yep,
because you didn't just communicate. But you had also said you like a firm handshake. You have the same
yeah,
expectations as any other businessman or business person. You
absolutely.
want someone to really shake your hand, not like,
Yeah, just been yeah, yeah, absolutely. So just not like a grab of the fingertips or like a real handshake. Yeah, absolutely.
that's awesome. Um, I feel like that answers that. So being fully seen, I wanted to open this conversation because I feel like we don't talk about handicaps or I don't even know how we talk about this anymore because it's been off the table for so long, ever since they made the rules that people with disabilities had to kind of not I don't want to say this wrong and I might say it wrong, but laws were passed to make accommodations in public places for people with disabilities.
Yes.
And it's almost like that's where the conversation ended, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like that doesn't do any of us justice because
Right.
we share the world together and nobody wants to be offensive. I agree with you. I don't think anybody wakes up and they're like, how can I go offend the most people as I can today? And you don't want to be a token. You're not
No,
like
not
the
at all.
token guy in a wheelchair. Like,
No.
so what else in the conversation could I be missing that brings respect and honor to you and other people that, again, there's a huge spectrum of disabilities from like mental and emotional disabilities that we can't see as much
Yeah.
to physical disabilities. So I just want to open the floor for you to share about yourself. I don't know if you noticed this, but I didn't directly start with why are you in a wheelchair? What is this? You can choose to share that or not. That is your business, not mine to like.
Yeah.
So I'm going to open the floor and just let you kind of talk to people and say what you want to say.
Wow. Okay. Um, so to sort of speak about, what you were just saying of what does it mean to be seen? Um, Let me ask you this, Amy, and I'm going to put this back on you, and I will then direct it back to myself. Um, what does it mean for you to be seen?
I personally would like to crawl in a hole and never be seen. But like I I personally would rather not. I really, I've just gotten to a place in my life at where even this is a real struggle for me. I
Okay.
scrutinize the video and I'm like, wow, you look ugly, or you that angle of your face is not your best, lady, or whatever. So I'm kind of a special case. I would rather not be seen. And I think that's maybe why it's an interesting question for me to ask.
Okay.
But if you don't mind, I'm gonna throw this ball straight to Lance. Can I hot potato this?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I'm thinking about when I think about being seen, what comes to my mind is I've been misunderstood quite a lot with being a very emotional guy and someone who's very intuitive and senses a lot of things. So being misunderstood was quite a lot and an often sore for me. I'd explain something, I'd hear other words, but like, no, you're not actually hearing or understanding me. So for me to be seen is to, for me, for some reason, be like mentally and emotionally actually just understood, like understood in clarity of what I'm trying to express. I mean, yeah, the stage is cool or being seen. I don't know, nothing else comes to my mind, but it just somehow it's really interesting for me that that's coming up of just being this understood and seen as, because for me, I was dyslexic, dysgraphia, had all these learning issues, had to go to special ed rooms, brain probes stuck to my head to teach me how to focus and think. And so I had that kind of belief and issues with my own self. So I think just being able to be seen as someone who is a great communication expert and someone who's is being understood in the way I communicate is I would say is a way of being seen for me.
I love that. Yeah, I would agree in a large capacity to that. So for me, I don't desire a lot of attention or the spotlight. It's actually harder for me as well to use my situation as a platform because I just want to live my life humbly. Um, and on one hand, I feel that my situation is actually a platform that God calls me to use. And so I try to be obedient in that. But the attention is hard. And so for me, what being seen is, it really comes down to intimacy. I think about like my wife, for example, she knows the intimate parts of me, the emotions, the stressors, my weaknesses. I really could say that her and God are the only two people that know me that intimately, that I'm not afraid that if they knew the full me, wouldn't judge me or reject me or abandon me. And so being seen is less about the attention and, like you were saying, Lance, to be known, to be understood, and then to be accepted fully in the midst of all that.
I would like to add that I I also want to make sure that me calling you an inspiration is not offensive.
Not
It
offended at
is
all.
based on your posts. So going off of what you just said, that's one of the things I love about how you communicate on LinkedIn and why I invited you here was because you share your heart and your mind and your soul sometimes, right? Like you just kind of are like, um, I didn't ask permission to do this so at any point. Just give me some sort of sign and I will shut up. But
I'm an
he
open
has
book. Go
come
ahead.
on LinkedIn and been very transparent about some days it's hard to be him. The one that really hit me, James, and the reason I thought of you when we talked about the stories we tell ourselves as our podcast kind of like topic, you said I sometimes tell myself I'm not a full man. And I mean, I got to tell you, like, I'm having a hard time keeping it together because after Lance spoke and it just me admitting I don't want to be seen at all, like, I'd rather never be seen. Those are hard things to say out loud, right? And when you said that, I think that's so relatable to every man. I think a
Yeah.
lot of men look at themselves and say, there's this thing that makes me not a full man, whether it's my emotions or the way I learn or the way I can communicate or the way people don't see me at all because I don't know how to communicate those things. And the fact that you coach men, right? It's a big deal
Yeah.
that you can say the things other men are afraid to say because they think that lessens them. I think it makes a stronger man because you're saying, here's a vulnerability, and I'm not afraid of you attacking it because I'm the one highlighting it, right? And so I saw a lot of strength in you showing men the way to their vulnerability so that they can heal certain places that they don't even want to touch or look at. And also, you went there first, right? Because you said, mine is easily visible, and I struggle with that. And
Yeah,
you acknowledged in that specific post, other men you might not see where their disability is or where they are hurt or where their pain comes from, but it's still a place that needs to be seen.
sure.
And how can I help you as well? So I want to open the floor for you to talk to that and kind of what maybe even what gave you the heart to work with just men. I mean, you do your counseling because you're a therapist on a different thing, but coaching men I feel is your own business. So you
Yes.
have your work that you went to school for and studied for. And then you have your heart, which is your Bible study with men and coaching men. And I wanted to give you the opportunity to talk about that too, because I like to let everybody talk about what they do because coming on a podcast is also saying, hey, see me further. This is who I really am, right?
Sure.
So just opening that floor, you can say whatever you want. You can bring up other posts, but this is why I like following you is because you can go from made made my wife go out to a party with me this weekend and she was kind of shocked because we planned on staying in to you know being transparent and bearing your heart to your followers.
Yeah, absolutely. And Lance, I want to kind of include you in this as well. So feel free to jump in and interact as you see fit, and share your perspective as well. For the last 5 years, as I've been doing counseling, especially with men, we would work through a lot of therapeutic models to help them through depression, anxiety, self-worth stuff. And I always had this thought in the back of my mind of these guys don't need therapy. They just need brothers to do life with. They need friendships. And my heart was like, I wish that I wasn't bound by ethical guidelines to where I could just say, hey, let's go hang out this weekend, or come to my church, or come to Bible study, or let's go grab a bite to eat together, and let's just hang out. And I always thought, like, just get these guys plugged in somewhere, and they will thrive. And the more I did that, the more I realized how true that is across the board for men and women, but especially men. Um, I have been doing a lot of one-on-one coaching, but I realized as I was working through my offer, um, I created a prompt through AI to help me process my thoughts and really just help me do a deep dive on what would work best. And it had asked me, when you're in the room with men, how do you help them progress? And how long does it take? And I said, well, with one on one, it takes anywhere from, 3 months to 12 months. But I said, but when you get guys in a group, it goes exponentially faster. And so it recommended, which I am building now, is build a community of men who can come in together with the same mission and join arms and link up and help each other through and create a brotherhood. And so um, the reason I wanted to work with men and Christian men specifically was I just thought about myself in their shoes and I said, what would really benefit me, 5 years ago when I was struggling with this stuff and still do struggle with this stuff is having guys around me that I trust who have the same struggles. Because when you feel like you're not alone in your mess, it removes a lot of the shame and the weight. Um, and it provides encouragement and motivation to to grow and to be better, to give you the strength to wake up tomorrow and say, hey, yesterday was a total failure, but today is a new day. And so let's go.
I love that. And Lance, we have been doing breakthrough sessions on this podcast. And I said to you the other day, I said, I feel like when we do healing in community, it seems to unleash differently instead of being like difficult. And I'm going to use the word violent because, like, when you're crying and your emotions are releasing and it's a really just kind of a torrent, it's a tsunami, it feels really violent. But it's almost like having more people around gives you this freedom. For some people, it might not, but for some people, it does, where you can almost experience it a little bit differently, like through joking a little bit or opening up. Do you want to speak on that, Lance? Because I think what he said, it's important. We heal in community.
There's a lot of things he's saying that are great.
Oh,
So
yeah.
one thing that comes to my mind is I have a lot of veteran background. My father was a Vietnam vet, and so I've had multiple people tell me now that there's been more deaths to suicide with veterans than actual war deaths. And the big thing because of that is because what he's saying, James is saying very clearly, which is the they're in this group, they're in this community, they come home and they're alone. They're alone, you know. And I was listening to something the other day that was talking about, honestly, made me tear up a little bit. And it pissed me off because I heard something about where Facebook had said we're creating one of the worst generations of men ever or something. I was like, what? And I kind of leaned in and said it was just saying. He just talked about how they did some study of like 70% of men can't even name a best friend. And so many guys are taught to be alone, to make it happen alone. You're the provider, you're the one, you can't be emotional, you got to shut it up, you got to put it away, you got to handle your shit, you know, and that produces some things that are very unhealthy, where we're ignoring our bodies, we're ignoring our emotions because we're thinking we're having to dump it to take care of something more important. Now, times that does happen. I can't say you can't, that'll never happen. Of course, we have to amp it up at times when maybe it's uncomfortable, but staying at that level, I'll tell you from personal experience, is extreme, can be extreme burnout, where you're feeling alone, or I own three companies, so I'm pushing my ass off. And then sometimes I'm pushing so hard that I'm burning out and forgetting why I'm even doing it in the first place. And then I'm being so busy with my businesses, I'm trying to connect and do networking, but it's not a brotherhood, it's more networking in business. I'll tell you right now, I called my mom this morning crying. It was like, how, because I haven't been on, I haven't had a girlfriend in years. I've been out here for years networking and just busting my ass and not seeing the movement that I want to. And then it being alone or not having that packed around me, yeah, it's you're fucking alone all the time, and it's disheartening.
So the brotherhood thing is a huge thing, James. It looks like you're landing on something that
Well,
I would have to
I'll add
agree.
one more thing to that. The brother, like of the groups, they've actually done like biofrequency stuff. The whole like in the Bible, two or more gather and I'll appear. I think it was kind of playing off of the Bible was talking about frequency, basically, when more people are coming together and more people are meditating in a room or praying or worshiping, something happens, something increases or
Mm-hmm.
builds or something, man, that's just like
Yeah.
totally different. We would have like weekend prayers, man, of 6 hours, 10 hours straight of just like prophesying and praying over people. And you get in the zone, and we create this thing called a fire tunnel. You have like 20 or 30 pastors all lay up in a tunnel, and they'd all be praying for you, man. People just seeing things clear out or healings or transformations or whatever. And there is something definitely special about one-on-one where you can go super deep. And also, like James mentioned, no one knows me like my wife and God, man. There's a special vulnerability for that creates, and vulnerability is going to create that connection. Renee Brown talks a whole lot about this. She's had a lot of
Yeah.
people interview her about this. You send guys to battle. You don't think that's stretching it or hard or whatever. Yeah, it's a vulnerable thing, but you share real stuff, creates real connection. If you share fake shit, you get fake connection. I've never
That's
said that.
right.
That is excellent. I like that.
I love that.
That's the truth, though. All right, James, give us more because that was brilliant. We had to grab onto that. But I think that that's huge. And you said something else interesting is like the ethical, and I'm putting that in air quotes for a reason. the ethical kind of guidelines say that you can't befriend someone you work with in the therapy space. And that's almost a dangerous ethical thing. So, like, people that blur the line between the therapist and the worker in an unhealthy way, they're going to do that anyways, right? So, like, people that do the wrong thing, they're going to do the wrong thing, whether that's in place or not.
Sure.
Whereas you were really just saying, I don't actually think you need therapy. You need friends. You need connection. You need people that will listen to you and understand you and cheer for you outside of your 1 hour, however often session, right? That's what you're saying.
Sure. And
Yeah,
it's
and it sucks.
hard.
It sucks for us guys because we're having to work most of the time, try to provide or try to figure it out, and then it's sometimes can be difficult to find that time. And girls, I think, can be a little easier and chatty and whatever. But I've also heard women sometimes can be the meanest to women. So yeah.
Yeah, and it's hard too because, I want to clarify that I think the ethical guidelines for therapy is good, because it protects the client and it protects the therapist as well. A lot of times, if those lines get blurred, um, one or both can get really hurt. Um, and so they're protecting both people from that. So I think that's good. I think the hard part is as we all get older, I'm in my mid 30s, and a lot of my really close friends we're having kids, they're moving out of state. And so you've spent so much time building these relationships. And when they change, the time and energy that that you've taken to build these relationships feels really overwhelming. Like, man, I got to start over and build new relationships. That's really hard. So instead, I'm just going to focus on my work
Ooh, James, get it, bro. Oh man, that's
because
so
I've
good.
I've got that down. That's accessible. I'm good at that. Obviously it takes physical and mental energy, but it doesn't take as much emotional energy. And I think guys are really protective of their emotional energy. That's why they have such a hard time being vulnerable. Um, so on one hand, when I say they should get friends, it's a really hard thing to do. And it's easy for me to say that, but it's harder to do. And so how do we help guys find that? That's the goal, to find those intimate
Yeah,
relationships.
I'd love to know you. I'd love to hear advice from you, James, because I'm not sure myself, man. I mean, I've been dancing, for years, but if like 15 years, I met all those friends and family, like you said, all my buddies. Yeah, I'm mid 30s too, bro. Married, kids, all the thing, and now I'm moved, and I'm almost starting over now in Colorado. I was in Texas, moved here a year or so ago, and it's just complete new. And I've been trying to get the friends or meet the people or try to go to little bars or dance events or whatever. But it's like I almost feel like I'm so much of an older soul now.
Yeah.
I almost just can't even connect. So I've almost just, yeah, like you say, just want to get back to my work, be alone, don't want to get, hurt or whatever, or someone assumes something or some girl say something. So let's just not do it.
Yeah, sure. So my first question I would say is, what is the cost of not doing that? Right. So we think about the cost of rebuilding relationships, and it takes time, it takes energy. There's the fear of I could spend all this time and not get anywhere. And then there's a whole sense of rejection from that, frustration. But then on the other hand, what's the cost of not pursuing relationships? Right? We get stuck in isolation. We feel
Oh,
lonely. We feel a heavy burden.
I was calling my folks today, man. I was like, yo, what am I gonna do? Stop and give up or something? I'm like,
Yeah,
like shoot, I'd be worse in the corner, man, sitting there not doing anything. Man, I'd really go crazy.
yeah. I'm super biased because I believe that um, the people that will thrive most are the people that have a relationship with the Lord to fall back on. Because of my experience, every job I've had, every relationship that I've had, every cool toy that I've bought, all those things, they're sufficient for a while. And then at some point, they fall short and they disappoint. Part of my story is that my older brother, who was one of my best friends, he was killed in an accident when I was 19. And for 3 years, I was just silently depressed. So I lived my life very hedonistically. I was out there living it up and partying and going to ASU and doing all the stuff that everybody said, hey, this will make you feel better. And it did in spurts. But like you said earlier, Lance, I would do all that stuff. I would come home to an empty house and just feel alone. And so for me, above all else, because of my faith, and this is just my worldview, I feel like I'm truly never alone. And it's in those dark moments that's what gets me through. Um, but for people that don't believe that, I would actually encourage them to challenge their own beliefs, to really seek out what's true. If if they can believe that stuff, I think they should because it makes life so much better.
I've heard too, it's something like if you believe that there's a God, it's like 70% some kind of like extra better life you get because now everything's happening for a reason versus just random. And I think that
Yep,
alone is such a massive change of, right, your filter of how you're viewing the world. Hey, it's all bad, it never works out, all these things are wrong, or hey, this was, feedback I got. I didn't fail. I got feedback from something. How can I learn? How can I grow? How can this work for me? How can I be benefited from this? Is a night and day difference of a life.
absolutely. And when you believe in God, you're no longer living for yourself. The people who are most miserable in life are the people that pursue their own happiness. Because happiness is just fleeting, right? I'm happy today. I'm upset tomorrow. Maybe I'm happy the next day. Maybe I'm depressed for a month. Maybe I'm anxious after that, right? Our
Yeah.
emotions are just all over the place. And so for me to say, my goal in life is just to be happy. Well, how often are you happy? What does that mean? Is it like a scale? Right? There's really no definition to what that is. Um, and really, I think, to be honest with you guys, what that really means is I just want to be comfortable. I don't want to face struggle or suffering. Um, but even faith, but also, like you said, scientifically in practice, it's actually proven that the people that do struggle and suffer, they build resiliency. Um, they develop courage and character. And when you have those things, it makes life more hopeful because you realize, hey, I'm in this mess right now. I might be beat up, but I'm not destroyed.
James, you remind me of one of the first times I ever became grateful of all my learning issues was I had a girl come up to me in college and I was kind of flirting with her. And I still remember she was like little 5'5", brown hair, these cute little glasses. I'm just trying to chat with her. And I started talking about the tests. I was like, hey, you gonna study for the test or something? You need a study partner? I don't know what I was saying, something. She's like, nope, I don't study for tests. I was like, oh, it's cool, but like, you're gonna study, right? Or like, what do you mean? She's like, no, I actually don't study for tests. And I kind of leaned
Mm,
back. I was like, never? She goes, never had to. Always made A's. I don't know what your first thought was, James, but I was pretty surprised at mine. I thought it would be a million other things. And I actually looked at her and I said, wow, you know what though? I kind of feel bad for you.
sure.
She goes, "What do you mean?" I mean, she like pooped herself or something. She was like, "What do you?" I never heard anyone tell me that, you know. And I was like, "Yeah, I actually feel pretty bad for you." She's like, "What?" I'm like, "Well, because my tenacity that I've made when I'd study for 3 hours and barely pass, and my friends study 30 minutes and make an A, I got grit you'll never be able to touch.
That's
Because when
right.
you
Yeah.
started, and I said this, when you gave up, it's probably when this time I just start."
Ooh, I love that.
That's so good. And I want to point out something that I'm finding really interesting. So, obviously, Lance is highly versed in HUNA and NLP. And then James is a traditional therapy background with an education. He's received his bachelor's, maybe. I don't know. I'm making an assumption there.
So I have a bachelor's in filmmaking, so not
I love
related.
it.
But I have a master's in counseling
That's
Fantastic.
awesome. So I made an okay assumption there
for
because
sure.
he had to get an education to be a therapist. So, but they talk similarly. So he talked about resilience and building courage and how I think I don't want to mix you two, but you talked about people are looking for their comfort. It's not really happiness they're looking for. They want to be comfortable. Lance says the brain, it's this subconscious's mind or unconscious's mind's job is to make you right and comfortable.
Hmm.
Well,
So I just want to point out how interesting it is to hear two very strong men talk about different modalities, but the same principles show up, which tells me they're important. So ding, ding, ding. And then I also want to point out you said something important, and I want to make it like crystal clear for the viewer what we're all saying because I think all three of us are on the same page here.
Hmm.
Superficial happiness is external. So like if you have the nice car, you have the house, you have the hair, you have the eyelashes, you have the clothes, you have the purse. If that's what's making you happy, it's not real, it's superficial. And it's like you always need something else to feed that superficial because it's not real. So like think about people that eat junk food all the time and they're always like, God, I'm so hungry. And you're over there eating the meat and potatoes going, man, I'm full. I feel great. I got my broccoli in, I got my Brussels sprouts, whatever.
Sure.
I have a rounded meal, my belly stays full. And the people eating chips and soda and all the junk are like, I'm unfulfilled. I'm
no, I
unsatisfied.
really like that, Amy. You're kind of like doing almost like the empty calorie view of this kind of versus the full meal. That's really good.
I like that too.
Yeah, but that's what you're kind of saying too, though, right? Like if joy, so I've always said joy and happiness are two different things. The Bible doesn't say be happy. It says that one of the fruits of the spirit is joy, right? Wait, hold on.
Hmm.
Love, joy, peace. Yes, it's number two. Okay. I had to think because I'm like, wait, am I making this up? It's been a minute since I read that part. But one of the fruits of the spirit is joy. Why joy? Because it comes from the inside. It can't be taken. It's not based on I look good today or I don't look good today or I somebody perceived me as rich or somebody perceived me as kind. It's based on I have this faith. I have these things about myself that are intrinsic that cannot be taken away. So even if I look like doggy doo doo today, I can still have joy because my that joy is not built on outward. It's built inside saying, I don't need to go do an act of kindness to feel like I'm a good person. I know I'm a good person. Out of my goodness comes kindness. But there's days I'm not so kind. It doesn't mean I'm not a kind person. It just means I'm having a day. I don't want to say hi
Yeah.
today. Like I
Yeah.
didn't say hi to
Absolutely.
anybody.
You're reminding me of a monk that I saw. He's like, I mean, he's way, way up in the monk world of like, he was also one of the only ones that studied like 4 or 5 different martial arts backgrounds. And as we've been talking, I remember I saw a video of him, someone asked and interviews him and says, "Are you happy?" And he goes, "That's a difficult question to ask, actually." Because it's kind of like what James said, he goes, is it a measurement? What are you asking? What is happiness? He said, what I'm looking for is more of the centeredness, the peace, being okay with like the ebbs and the flow and me being in the middle, watching it, being okay with it. Versus, yeah, trying to just be that happiness. Well, yeah, now we're always trying to find, well, I'm not happy, so I need another something, need something to bump me up again, to come to that when if we could just be okay with who we are, where we're at, what's going on, this is a different experience for life.
So good. So I don't want to keep anybody too long. We're almost at that 1 hour mark, but I
Oh
do
my
want to
God.
ask this because you guys have both raised some really like, I feel like we could probably talk forever because it's so good. But what is the most important measure? Is it joy? Is it, you said peace, and I'm like, oh God, I will protect my peace. I will cut people out, never speak to them again to have peace. And it's funny because I've realized when you do that, people act like you're the villain. You become the most evil person they know when you're just like, look, I can't be a part of you anymore because it brings drama and I don't do drama. Like, I don't have time for it. I can support people. My friends can call me with the darkest stuff in the world and I will help carry it. Which is why, like, James brought up that brotherhood, and I'm like, dang, it is so important. You know, I
Yeah.
have a girlfriend where if she calls, I drop everything. I missed an important phone call that I had scheduled today because she called me and I knew she needed me. And like, I'm sorry, she's coming before anything because we have a 20-year friendship that has, it's been through thick and thin. It's not going anywhere. She becomes the priority, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
And so, um, when I heard her voice, I go, you just got off work, huh? And she goes, yeah. And I was like, tell me about it. And, it makes me sad. And I mean, I hope her husband never watches this, but he gets jealous of our friendship. And he's not the first, and hopefully he'll be the last, but maybe not. But because she chooses to call me because I don't compete with it. I'm not like, oh yeah, this one time at band camp,
Mm,
I'm like, Lance, I say stupid stuff and then Lance feeds it with his laugh. So, um, I don't try to compete with it. I just sit in it and I'll just say, that sucks. Like, I can't help any other way. There's not literally, we're 16 hours apart. So it's not like I can go give her a hug, but I can listen and just be like, wow, that's some heavy crap. How do I help? And usually I'll ask that question. She'll be like, just hear me out,
yeah,
And I do. And that's intimacy as well, right? Is being able to make space for someone when it's how sometimes, right?
sure.
So, what would you guys say the most important measure of a successful or happy, using the word happy, like what is that thing that holds more weight than some superficial measure?
Lance, you want to go first?
Yeah, I'll go first and let you finish off we'll have you finish it off. Um, it's a great question. Something comes to my mind is looking at we have spiritual, mental, emotional, and physical, not just one piece. So I would say
Mhm.
looking at, those areas and maybe using some, mathematicalness and kind of at least laying them out, being like, hey, where are we at here? And let's look at a scale or something to kind of base off so we can have more, congruency as a whole. So when you say ask that question, most important thing, I think one, relationship with yourself, because there ain't no one else but you, so that's really important. And I think being able to, I don't know why I'm saying this, but like just map out your life in a way that you're choosing and deciding and then releasing, that way you can be in that more of that, hey, I've chose this, I've done this, I've decided to go through this instead of what if I should or shouldn't have and all that. Making it the right decision. I heard today, it's not a right or wrong decision. You make a decision and you make it the right decision. I really liked that today, this morning. I heard
Mm,
that. Like, wow, that's good versus sitting in the background of the what ifs and the I don't knows and all that. Fuck that. It does not help. It is good to look in the rearview mirror now and then. It is good to look while we're driving in the rear view, but not all the time. Okay, I've learned that myself that we're getting focused in that past stuff is no good. It can help and we can learn from it. But we have to drop it because then it just ends up being more weight that we carry. Right? So relationship with ourself, looking at all areas of our life in remembering too, I think that we are not our emotions. We are the experiencer of our emotions, right? It's subject active thing, and it's over there. I'm noticing and seeing it. So noticing too that, and as men that, we aren't that emotional thing of because I think sometimes as men we'll think we are weak. We're having a moment of weakness. No, sir, we are not weak. We're having a moment of something. And to be real and not throw it away, we need help. We need support. We need that team. The last thing I'll end with on when Mr. James mentioned about camaraderie. Did y'all know the best? And this may be a little silly, but my dad trained dogs for the police force, so I got a lot of dog background in my head. And one of the things we talked about was if you want to help a dog out that's been doing random shit it shouldn't be doing, you put him with the pack.
Mm,
So what you're saying, Lance, if I could sum it up, is it's not just one measure. You have to take in different things like relationship with self, taking in your whole of experience, not just looking at one highlight or one bad point, and then also being part of a group. So there's different things that kind of create your measure of life, is what your answer is.
Yeah, I think so. Because we can easily say, like, oh, well, yeah, happiness or peace. One of my coaches I love is like, God lives in peace. So you want to have more peace and be in that frequency because then more of that peace comes around you. Sure, that's an easy answer and that's great. And as you're doing that, I'd say let's look at all other areas of life and just be realistic and do what we can with what we decided to do and then let it go. I've been having a big lesson at myself, right? I've done thousands of hours of integrative psychology. I ran multiple businesses with my family. I, in my mind, feel like I should be this, huge thing now. I'm not, or, whatever, but I got to be okay with that, that I chose what I chose. And maybe it comes in the next few years or something, and that maybe God's helping me build X, Y, and Z. But again, I've learned that if I get into the mental of trying to figure it out and I box it, I don't give any room for the glory of God to do his magic.
I love that. Yeah, that's really good. Yeah, I would echo a lot of that. The work that I do is fairly similar. With my guys in the community, we look at relationship with God, um, with family, and with work. Those are three main areas where guys really kind of feel the most effects from in terms of their self-worth. So am I living a life that's faithful to God? Am I a good husband? Am I a good dad? And then am I doing fulfilling work that fills me up and blesses others? And are they aligned, right? So if you're drifting in one of those areas, when you want to pinpoint where you're drifting, where that started, and how we get away from that. And so um, I love everything that you said, Lance. And for me, if we're talking about like what is a satisfying life, um, we talked about intimacy, which I think a really easy definition for people just to make it clear. Intimacy is just when you feel like you know someone deeply and you feel like that person knows you deeply. That's just the very basic definition of an intimate relationship. Um, and I would say, above all else, that what makes a joyful life is, I know this probably sounds cliche, but it's love. Um, Not in like a superficial way, um, but having people that know you, that understand you, that are committed to you, um, that will love you in spite of yourself, or I should say, in spite of the things that maybe you don't like about yourself. Um, Love is very healing. Before I got married, I pursued relationships, trying to get a girlfriend for 26 plus years of my life. And what I always ran into was that kind of friend zone thing. I've never had a problem making friends with people. Um, and I recognize so many good things about myself that I found in my mind to be valuable. But I always had this thought of like a girl might want 10 things on her checklist for a partner. And I was like, every time I'll hit 9 out of 10 of those. But there's always something. Maybe I'm broken. Maybe it's my disability that I will never measure up to. And then when I met my wife and she saw beyond that and she loved me in spite of all my insecurities, it was so healing and it was so freeing. Um, and I think love, first and foremost, when you understand that God loves you, but then when you have people in your life that you love and they love you, it allows you and frees you to be authentic. The values that I always preach to people are three things: be authentic, be resilient, and be courageous. Right? Authenticity to me is not just speaking your mind or being unafraid to say, funny stuff or, be on the edge a little bit, but it's not defining yourself by what other people think about you, right? To love yourself, to know that you're made in the image of God, that you have value. And once you live in that frame of mind, it totally frees you up um, to be more courageous, to take leaps of faith, to go out and do stuff that you might have been afraid to before. And the more you do that stuff, the more you take action, you build experience, you fail, right? You get tougher, you build resilience, right? And so I don't know about you guys, but especially in business, I tell this to every guy I talk to. In my opinion, you can learn sales skills, copywriting, marketing, public speaking, all that good stuff. But at least to me, the number one most valuable and universal skill across all domains a guy or a person should learn is resiliency. What are your guys' thoughts on that? Just curious.
Well, I
I
was just seeing I
honestly
was seeing the tape end right there. I was like, bam. I was like, that's it. Go.
home
Get the
run.
crowd cheering. Boom. That was good.
I I appreciate that because I have a hard time connecting to people. I would say I'm an extreme introvert. I've chosen to be in the background my whole life. Like I chose that. I chose to be in the background. And that comes from severe bullying when I was younger. I've been shot at twice actually. Um Once was my job. I was working security and we had a drive-by shooting and like I'm just one of those people. If I'm not seen, I'm not in danger. So like, let me just hide and leave me alone. And I leave everyone alone. I don't try to be on anybody's radar or doing anything that can get me on anyone's radar. So like when you bring up resilience, I'm like, yeah, I got that because I keep going. And sometimes I think I'm stupid. Like, why do you get up? Just lay there and die. Like just give up already. But I there's something inside of me that I get up anyhow and I show up anyhow even when I don't want to. And when you say resilience, I'm like, okay, I think I can if that's the measure, I've got that. So I appreciate that.
And James, I'd like to hear your thoughts on, I really love this question. I really want to hear your thoughts on this. When do you think the resiliency, I'm praying about this a lot, is like a closed door versus a push through?
Can you elaborate on that? What do you mean by that?
I sure can. This is one of my favorite questions to ask people. So I've been praying a lot to God of like, man, I've been pushing so hard. I've been trying to make these things happen. I've been doing the networking, the marketing companies, the magazines, and it's still not doing what I know it can do. And I was really sitting down one day and I was just realizing, like, you know what, Lance? Your gift, and I got this from Steve Harvey. He was talking about, guys, your gift and the thing you're supposed to do, he actually said is not what you're passionate about. It's what you create high value with little effort.
Mm.
I really like that. I've been chewing on that, like, okay, God, well, where am I? And it's been coming to me because I actually just hired a new marketing guy who's all commission based and he wants to do everything from A to Z. And so what I'm really excited about is I finally can let go of the push through that I've been trying to make happen of this marketing managing piece when that is not me. I'm the coach, I'm the speaker, I'm the presenter, I'm the showman. That's who I am. So when I've been trying to become this person that I'm not, though I've had to, right? So I've been learning like, wait, when is this a push through? I got to keep doing it to build the momentum and the resiliency versus this is the wrong way. Got to U-turn it, man. Like, so another quick example was my parents had a big Western store that I thought was a push through. 10 years going there, trying to make it happen, got worse and worse and worse. And I got more and more angry, more and more depressed. Finally
Mm.
figured out wrong way. As soon as I let it go, literally the next day God drops me integrative psychology, which I've been doing the last 5, 6 years and
Wow.
obsessed with it. Yeah, there's a whole cool story of little, I'll tell you a little bit of it, at least a little bit piece of it,
Sure.
because I just love it. So I gotta feel myself crying. Um, I told my dad that I couldn't do it. And he goes, well, what do you have left? Because you've studied 30 something healing modalities and you're still pretty angry. And I said, you're right. I'm incredibly angry. And all I know is that this isn't my direction anymore. And I got to let it go.
Mm.
And as I did, I'm driving to Austin, Texas to go to a 100 person dancing country boat party thing. Um, and I'm on the back. And I'm praying to myself, being like, man, God, this is fake, right? This empty calories, here, and I can tell it's not fulfilling, and I'm gonna have to go home and handle this. And I had a wild experience on the boat that I had this intuitive, crazy pulling that was in my stomach to come. I literally ran over to this girl and I go, hey, I don't know who you are, but I'm having this crazy feeling I'm supposed to talk to you. I feel things intentionally. I'm sorry if this comes off weird. And there's more to the story, but basically, she just literally within about 10 minutes was just like, you're supposed to do integrative psychology. I'm like, what? What is that? And she just tells me about it. I'm like, that sounds amazing. And as I'm driving home, I ask the Lord something. I say, is this the right way? Is this really it? Have you finally given it to me? And I hear, yeah, Lance, I have. And let me tell you, James, I was very spiritual. I said, well, Lord, well, finally, I mean, shoot,
Yeah.
I've tried all this stuff. You ain't seen me over here like trying to work it out. I mean, come on, man, And I hear this quick slip inside my unconscious. It goes, well, Lance, I wanted you to try everything. So when you got gold, you'd actually know what the value was and what it was worth.
Hmm.
And let me tell you again, James was very spiritual. And I go, well, that's great. And gold's nice or whatever, but man, I'm still pissed and blah, 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 blah. And I'm just
Yeah.
yakking in my truck, right? And I hear something that has changed my life forever. I heard, Lance, you knew that store wasn't for you for years. And I've been waiting on you to let it go because you've had one foot in, one foot out, and I can't use you that way. And now that you've let that go, I can use you. And I'm going to tell you everything what to do from now on. And so that was a big learning from me of like I was pushing through too hard to a direction that wasn't mine
Yeah.
versus letting go, being in that safety or vulnerability of letting go of the only thing I knew to reset of the thing I knew I was supposed to do.
I love that. Thank you for sharing that. That is so impactful. It reminds me of Psalm 127, when it says that unless the Lord builds the house, those who build it labor in vain.
Ooh, that's interesting, man. I was thinking this morning, I was like, God, are you teaching me to literally rely on you? Because I can't push any harder. I can't go anymore. I was looking at my calendar. I'm like, I can't even fit any more people. So like
Yeah.
I gotta let go.
Yeah.
I gotta let go of something here. And there's a difference between letting go and giving up, and I'm learning a letting go of surrender.
Yeah. And I think that's wisdom from the Lord right there. I think you nailed it, man. Um, People really fear letting go because it feels like failure. Um,
Mm. Oh, I
So
never thought
many
of it that way. That's
times,
good.
so many times. And I even made a post about this the other day because the work that I'm doing, it's all for the hope of bringing income later. My wife is so gracious to let me just have a spare time job where I'm, making a little over $1,000 a month because she's bringing in the money right now to build this because she believes in it. Um, but I was at Target the other day and they had a sign that was hiring. And I sat there for a moment. I was like, I could walk up to this counter right now and get this job and have, the money right away. And that would feel comfortable and secure. And yet there was this fear of if I do this, I'm failing at what I'm building. Um, and I don't believe that God has that for me. I believe that God has me in a space of discomfort so that I have no choice but to trust in Him. Um, and so I love what you're saying. Um, I often have people who struggle with this, and I don't know if you've ever had this with your clients, um, but I make them make a fist and I say, squeeze your fist as tight as you can until it starts to hurt. And then I want you to hold it there to the point where it's like, man, I've just got to let this go. And then I ask them to let it go and I say, how does that feel? Like, oh man, it feels so much better. I just released all that tension. And that's actually a spiritual exercise. They don't even realize it. Um, to your credit, we often have desires, plans, and we say, God, will you bless my plans? Because in our heads, this is exciting, this is what we want. It's the best way that we see it. But a spiritual mentor and a brother of mine recently told me, James, you should start praying, God, will you shape my plans?
Ooh, that's good.
Yeah.
That's good.
Really good. That's
And
good.
so,
I was thinking, yeah, like a song I heard too of like, God, thank you for all of the unanswered prayers. I remember one I
yeah,
love. Yeah, thank you, Lord, for all, it's an old hymn. Thank you for all the unanswered prayers, right? People that maybe you wanted that relationship and you prayed for it, but it didn't work out. Then you find out later on why.
yeah. Um, Lance, I don't know where you're at with all this, but just the stuff that you've been praying about and asking God to use you, and how you said, now that you're both feet are in, you're not riding the fence. God can use you now. Um, that's such a powerful place to be in. And I think one thing I'll just share about my life is I feel really blessed to be born with a disability. I don't want to over spiritualize this because there's a lot of stuff that I missed out on. I wish I could walk. Life would be a lot easier. Um, be a lot less challenges. Um, but especially in this culture, we are taught and we are um, encouraged to be strong and independent and have it all figured out. Um, but my situation literally forces me to be in utter dependence on God for everything. Like, yes, I have a wife. Yes, I have caregivers, but God still provides them. If they don't show up, I'm SOL. If my wife has a heart attack in the middle of the night, what's going to happen? I can't help her, right? I can't help myself. Um, so yeah, even every breath in our body, we don't think about this, but that even that's a gift from God.
Mm.
And I can tell you that because I've had pneumonia multiple times, and I know what it feels like to not be able to breathe. And trust me when I say that every breath is a gift from God.
James, that's amazing. I study ancient art of Hawaiian healing called Huna, and they say One of their main phrases is God lives in each breath.
Mhm.
Oh, woo. That's huge. I love how it just cycles, like faith and healing and the different modalities. When they're not being manipulated or used incorrectly, it's almost like they work like a puzzle, is what I'm kind of noticing.
Yeah.
So I appreciate both of you. Like I said, I don't want to keep anybody too long because maybe we want to do this again and we'll talk about that later. But I appreciate you coming on the Rebel Mike podcast with us, James. I appreciate everything you've shared. Like, I honestly feel like I need to just go think about some things and cry right now. I don't know why I feel like that, but I do feel like that. So I thank you. And thank you, Lance, for being vulnerable with us as well, because I know that's not easy. And I just, this was great. I think I needed this. I'll speak for myself, not for anybody else, but I appreciate both of you and the wealth of knowledge you both showed up with. And I will talk to you both later.
Awesome. Yeah, it was my pleasure. You guys were both great. I appreciate the questions and the conversation, and I really enjoyed my time.
Thank you, James, for your encouragement, man, your wisdom. I really appreciate it. You've definitely helped me think a few things. So I may go cry too for a little bit, just like think
I
about some,
probably will too.
just think about some stuff, let it process. But one of my friends, one of my best friends passed over a year ago now, and he was 45. And his daughter was messaging me last night, 16 years old. And she's just like, I don't know how to process this anymore, Lance. And my friends are making fun of me. And some even people are even saying I don't even have a dad, which I can't even imagine being told that.
Ugh.
But man, I didn't know what to do last night, man. And I was just sitting like, what do I tell her? And, I just, all I could think about was, she was really encouraging too, because I said, we talked for a bit, but I don't know why I'm sharing this, but one thing I said to her that changed everything was I said, one of my favorite memories of your dad, I miss him a lot, was I remember I was at a dance event and I was complaining about some girls saying some stuff about me and spreading rumors and stuff, just being catty. And I was just really angry about it. And I was like, I'm not even doing anything. Like, I don't know why people always have to talk about stuff. And I'm sitting there talking for 30 minutes, it felt like, just complaining. And he looks at me and he says, Lance, I respect you, but I don't respect this piece of you. So I'm going to walk away. And when the new Lance that I know wants to come out, I'll be happy to greet him because there's a lot to be grateful for. And I'm not going to sit and encourage this man that's just complaining. And I told her that, and she was just like, "Thank you so much, Lance. Like, you just reminded me of who my dad is, and like, I'm stuck in all the wrong and what's going bad, but I can also look for all the beauty around me as well."
Wow, man, you had a is a great friend to stand up to you that way.
It was because he wouldn't let me run my pattern. I just wanted to complain and be angry. He wouldn't let me do it. And that was a beautiful example of like a very healthy boundary. Because I remember I stopped too. I stopped immediately. I went, "Wow, you're right." He goes like, "Yeah, man, this is exhausting. Just sitting here bitching. Like, we're here to dance with it with a bunch of pretty girls. Like, go fucking dance,
Yeah.
And like how we can all get stuck in our own 2 cents of BS, man, and not see like the other things around us or, just get stuck in our, little hole of problems.
Thank you so much for sharing that. Actually, how
And I
old are you?
think that's our big takeaway today is like, don't get stuck. Reach out for brotherhood or sisterhood or camaraderie where it's available, right? And I'm kind of team James on this. Like, men building a brotherhood is healthier than like co whatever. Like, I think that's the healthier pattern is women to understand women's issues and men understand men's issues, and it gives you a freedom to discuss things. So like I run a women's Bible group we do unhinged Bible study. And it's only for women. And I've had men challenge that and they're like, you're sexist. And I'm like, no, we can connect on issues that only women have. And
Yeah.
James knows this from doing Bible study with men. Men need their place and their time to open up without being afraid they might offend a woman if they make a joke that maybe is off color or whatever. So I think, starting circling back to what this started as, and I think is still important is when we see someone who's different from us, what no matter what that difference looks like, maybe they're wearing a trench coat and you remember the trench coat mafia from, Columbine era. I'm aging myself, by the way. Or, it's a disability that is visible. We need to connect, but not in a false, empty calorie way, right? Like if you would normally say hi to everybody you pass, say hi. If not, James says ignore me, man. Like I'm happy for you to
Yeah.
not talk to me, don't pat me on the head. So we all just need to work on being better humans. And part of that is working on ourselves so that we're not dealing with an insecurity that we're projecting onto someone else. And it morphed into this conversation has just morphed into so many amazing things, so much
Yeah.
knowledge. So again, I just want to thank you guys. I am going to stop us though, because I feel like we could probably do this for 12 hours straight. So I will thank you again, and I'm going to go ahead and turn it off, and I'll message you both in a bit.
Alrighty.
Have a
All
good
right.
night.
Good to meet you, James. Be cool, man. See
Yeah,
y'all
you as well,
later.
Lance.
All
Take
right.
care, guys.
Bye, y'all.
Bye.
Bye.